Welcome everyone. We're here sitting with the CEO of TEHA Africa, Mr. Pietro Mininni.
Thanks for having me. It's the second time. It's a privilege to be with you.
Thank you very much, sir. First, congratulations on the 12th anniversary of this initiative. I see this initiative stretches across Africa with Italy, with Europe and elsewhere. And just now I saw those beautiful and promising figures or projections or prognosis of what we're going to be having in terms of demographic bulge, African youth dividend, and what that means for markets. But not only that, what that means for technology moving from Europe to Africa, and some of those benefits, as the study gentleman called it, mutual beneficial. Now, what is the vision from here onwards to prepare for those prognoses we saw?
Thank you so much. And we are successfully organizing the 12th edition of the CEO Dialogue. At the beginning, the initiative started with a bilateral concept, Italy and South Africa. Yes. And we enlarged the geographical scope to Europe, to Southern Africa, to Sub-Saharan Africa. Is our global event taking place in the country to draw positive attention on this region in the world, produce fresh data about economy, industrial opportunities. We are very looking forward also to the G20. We want to understand what will be the conclusions, what also will be the role of the private sector in shaping the discussion that there will be in the next coming days. As you know, private sector accounts for 2/3 of the total investments, 90% of the workforce. So private sector is important also to contribute in shaping future policies. Yeah. And let me tell you, yes, we facilitate a role in bringing investments for also your beneficiation. We know is important to manufacture value added, to build new value chains. But we need, first of all, to fill the gap of infrastructure, which, if that happens, means a 2% of GDP growth rate more on an annual basis. But there are African best practices. So we are not here to give lessons. We are here to build partnerships. Yes. And we have 1.4 trillion of US dollars as total market capitalization, which is a 500% increase in the last 20 years. This means that there are rising African giants, okay, that will compete for sure in the global arena, and will be the African giants to give answers to unemployment, to public debt, to investments, and we want to partner with them. We want to discover that.
Thank you very much, because you mentioned something very pertinent, which I was going to ask you later, but now that you mentioned it, what instruments does TEHA have in mind? Because we're talking about demographic bulge, the African youth distinct demographic. What instruments does TEHA have for inclusion of the youth into the market, as we see a very high number of youth unemployment in South Africa, in Southern Africa, and the continent as a whole?
Well, we don't have, answers to all the questions. We have, as also our CEO mentioned before, our Global Attractiveness Index to measure the attractiveness of every African country, capable or not to attract investments, and South Africa ranks first. The idea, as I said before, is that the private sector should play its own part and ultimately be responsible to bring on board the youth, the rising youth.
Yes.
So not just waiting. the answers, the responses from the public, from the government, from multilateral agencies.
Mm.
But in order to do so, also, as I said at the beginning, once again, I want to repeat, the infrastructure is critical. So there is a need, not only in South Africa, in the continent, but in Europe, we have also that kind of issue to upgrade hard facilities, from ports to railways to roads, infrastructure, to move quickly goods. And there is a big opportunity, not only of trading between South Africa and the rest of the world, but within Africa, intra-Africa.
Speaking of intra-Africa, we've got in place in Africa and the continent recently signed. It's a new experiment, but a very much needed experiment, because if you gauge trade within the EU, you gauge trade within Americas, we're talking about 20%, 40%, but in Africa we find that it's less. Intra-African trade is less than 15%. Now, is that not a stumbling block for TEHA? And if it is a stumbling block, are there means in place? Because you've spread all over Africa. I've seen that. I know that you are there in Mozambique. I know it physically. Your office is in Mozambique. I know that you're in Zimbabwe. I know that you're in Zambia. This lack of intra-Africa trade, or lack of transportation and movement of people and goods in Africa, doesn't it limit or goes against the aspirations of TEHA?
Well, changes need time, okay, to adopt, to develop. But for sure, I mean, as you know, in EU, there are no visa between countries. I mean, let's start with no visa on arrival between the African countries. That would help also to boost maybe tourism, other sectors, movements of people within the region. I'm not saying international arrivals, but I mean lessons learned that I mean if you adopt digital visa, ease of arrival, that increase your competitiveness, increase your capacity to attract capitals. But once again, changes need time, and there are, of course, high-level discussions at SADC level within the African Union, and the African Continental Free Trade Area has been signed in recent years. So EU is an exercise that was funded decades ago. We are seeing now the results with the common currency, but we are here because we believe that this is the century of Africa.
Yes. Now, I believe TEHA is as a result of collaboration between Italy and South Africa, primarily as a bilateral relation, and then it has spread all over the continent. What are the specifics of Italian international economic model? Because this is what it is. What are these specific principles that has enabled Italy to find itself in this primary position in terms of continental cooperation?
Well, as we outlined before, when we started our summit, the FDI from Italy to South Africa increased by 3.5 times, to SADC 4 times. We have excellencies and best practices in the machinery that are, consistent in the agricultural, in the mining as well. So, for example, in the mining, we don't have, global giants that are able to get license, like Anglo American and Glencore, but we are very capable to work along the value chain. Okay, so machinery, water, energy, renewables. So we are very capable to work in different industries that are very also important in the region. Automotive is also one of that. So we don't work as a tier one, but once again along the value chain, and we have a historical presence in Mozambique, in the gas industry. In South Africa, we have 28,000 Italians that are residing here. So it's the largest also Italian community in sub-Saharan Africa.
One of your colleagues during presentations mentioned something that is very in vogue or very pertinent to South Africa. In South Africa, we have a growing SMMEs. that growing SMMEs, it's not fast for them to fast track their development, or rather it's not easy for them. There are some stumbling blocks. If you were to speak directly to South African MMEs, wannabes, aspirants of being SMMEs, or those already in SMMEs but are not able to advance, what will be your advice to
Well,
them?
you know, it's always difficult, and I believe it's also not fair to speak for others. Okay, but if an SME come to me asking for an advice, okay, we see. I mean, as I said before, the future is Africa. There are rising stars in Africa that for sure will become global giants. There is a lack of access to capital. Okay, so as in Italy, we did for some sector in the food industry, for example, is to merge SMEs. So to try to not compete alone. You know, united we shall stand, as in
Yes,
the others.
yes,
So why don't you merge? You make a bigger group that has more assets
yes,
and capacity to negotiate with the banks, with financial players to get funds to scale. So
yes.
that could be my very first advice. But once again, it's not fair.
Thank you very much. One last point. What will be the resolution that you like this dialogue to have, to take as a resolution and pointing us forward to your next
So
birthday?
we don't have a primary objective, okay, of the event in the sense that we will have conclusions. We want to have an open discussion, okay, between CEOs from South Africa, from Southern Africa, and international players about doing business, facilitate partnerships. And in recent years, we facilitated many deals across several tech sectors, in the automotive, in the renewable, in the leather. We want that this platform grows. Okay, this is my wish. Grows in terms of commitments that should be made from the business community, also from the public sector, regarding some recommendations that will come, I believe, from the private sector to ease the doing business in the region. We have 28 media confirmed, so there is also quite mediatic exposure. And one outcome we will have is also the following: that tomorrow we will be signing the CEO manifesto, 10 statements on the future of African business,
Yeah.
with all the partners, and this will be conveyed to the South African presidency, will be conveyed to the G20 Secretariat and to the G20 member states. Simple, key statements from the private sector on the future of Africa. And we hope some of those ideas that were conceived by my organization in close cooperation and consultation with the other partners like the Gates Foundation, Standard Bank, MSC Cruises, DHL, and others, will contribute, you know, to shape the dialogue and the discussion of the G20.
Good luck with the PPP, as we say, private popular partnership. Mr. Pietro Mininni, CEO of TEHA Africa. Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. Thanks
Thank you
for
for